Hi, welcome to the Divine Insight Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I am so thrilled to have an incredible guest with me who I just recently met. And her name is Shawn. She is a full trance channeler. And I recently met her at a workshop that she and another guest who I've had on my show before taught on co-creating. And I just couldn't wait to get her on the show. So I'm thrilled to have her with us today. And just by way of background, Shawn is a graduate of the University of Philosophical Research. And as I mentioned before, she's a full trance channel, and we're going to talk about what that means. Together with her and Tora, who is wise and loving consciousness that she channels, they specialize in an in-depth approach to personal and spiritual development and are widely known for teaching the skill and art of channeling since 1984. Shawn, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I just couldn't wait to get you on when I met the other day, and I'm also thrilled to talk to Tora when we get further on into the show.
Sure.
And I think for people who have been watching the show or listening to the show for a while, I haven't had someone who channels, other than Athena Demetrios, who channels Dr. Peebles. We talked about her book. But as far as somebody with your background and experience and decades doing so, I'm just excited to learn more about your process. Can you tell me a little bit about how it was that you learned that you could channel?
Well, channeling is very much a developmental process, and it's very, very rare for somebody to start channeling and it's all sort of right there, because the developmental process involves telepathic rapport and all sorts of adjustments. And I was in two classes actually, but one in particular that was geared toward mediumship and getting to know more about other dimensions of consciousness, and I didn't really think I was going to vocal channel, but there was a long meditation in the last class, and at the end of that long meditation, out came a voice that was not my own.
Oh, wow.
Very different, very surprising.
Yeah,
And
wow.
yet I'd been preparing.
Uh-huh.
That preparation process was very much with my higher self and a telepathic rapport, and I was being sort of told what to expect to some degree. So then when Tora finally came through, so there were other ones first that sort of helped the adjustment process, but then when Tora finally came through, it was like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. It was like home. Okay, this is home, you know. So comfortable, so much love. And so also the other aspect of developing it, and I want to stress is that I was part of a research that a friend of mine was doing for her PhD. And she was studying the developmental characteristics of somebody who was a medium or a channel. And so I was one of several people that were her subjects, and she asked a lot of questions. And so we met every week for her to talk to the entities that were coming through. And what that did is it allowed me to develop it, because if it had happened and I had just gone about my life, who knows what would have happened. But because she worked with me every week, it could develop, and that rapport, the relationship with Tora could evolve. And that part of it is very much what I teach, which is developing the rapport, developing the relationship. It's very important.
Yeah.
So it didn't just happen.
Yeah, you just wake up one day and suddenly started channeling a being.
Right.
So what age were you when this started to happen in your life?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think, in my 30s, roughly. I tend not to be in real numbers oriented.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I do feel that more and more younger people in their 20s are also being attracted to channeling and can do it.
Yeah, so
if they stick to the process of developing it.
Right. I think, like the intuition that I talk about and utilize in my work as well, we talk about it being like a muscle. It strengthens with practice and discipline, and you can become stronger and better at it the more you do it, like most things. Can you talk a little bit about what channeling is? What is channeling for people who don't know?
Well, it's a very broad term. And broadly speaking, it's connecting with alternative sources of intelligence and or energy and bringing it through as if one is a vessel. So that's a broad, because you could say writing is channeling, you could say Shakespeare was channeling,
right.
But channeling in the modern terminology, the way we use the term now, refers to bringing information from wise other dimensional beings, whether it's spoken or written, but in a direct way, so that there's not the intermediary of, say, a psychic.
Right.
So when psychics are giving readings, they're not literally channeling, they're bringing information from other sources, but they're not doing it directly. So that's the difference.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask if there's a difference between, channeling and sort of the nomenclature that we utilize a lot nowadays is sort of intuitive, or using your extrasensory abilities like clairvoyance or clairaudience. How is that different from channeling, if it is?
Well, the difference is the use of consciousness. So intuition and your own development of that is basically using your own consciousness. But in the more modern way of thinking of channeling, you're connecting with another consciousness. So there's a different use of consciousness going on. Everyone has good intuition, or has intuition of some kind.
Right.
And yet not everyone is going to take the time to connect with an alternative source and the other intelligence to bring information. So it is different.
So with can you share a little bit about your experience, what that feels like sort of experientially while you are channeling Tora?
Oh, when I'm in trance.
Yeah,
okay.
when you're in trance.
Well, it's a deep trance, and it's like being in a very deep meditation, and the analogy I use a lot is I'm sitting on the road watching a train go by, feeling a train go by, and it's going by real fast. All the cars are going like this, and there's writing on the cars, and I can't read it. There's words being said, and I can't follow it. So it's just like this rush of energy going by. So I can't intrude, I can't follow it, I can't stop it. I don't want to stop it.
Right.
And it's very comfortable. It also feels like I'm being completely surrounded in a cocoon of love.
Oh, that's a beautiful image. Wouldn't we all like that? Well, to that point, can everyone learn to channel, or does everyone have the capacity to do that?
To a degree, yes. Everyone can connect to other intelligences and build a telepathic rapport, but not everybody's going to want to do it. So the analogy I use is like a violin player. Player. Somebody's I'm directing a little to the audience here. I don't know where your camera is, but
yeah, it's that way.
There it is. Okay. Yehudi Menuhin or Isaac Stern, great violinists. And would you say they were born to be violent? Well, maybe they had very small fingers, I don't know. But what they did is they put their desire and their action and their training into it. So they were educated, they were trained. And they had the tenacity to develop it. And it's the same with channeling. That anyone can pick up a violin and go squeak, squeak, squeak.
Right. Yeah.
But not everyone is going to be Isaac Stern.
Would play it. Yeah. Beautifully. Yeah. So I'm also curious, because there's a lot of narrative and movies and all that there might be some fear that people have about what kinds of things, like let's just say if I open the doors and I empty, get out of that myself in some sense, if that's what's happening, that there might be some sort of non-loving, or in fact a cultish or being that might be scary, or somebody even when it's undesirable. What are the risks that is possible?
There's no more risk than it would be going outside your front door and going out into the world and talking to anyone you want to talk to. So we use discernment. We don't go talking to people that are
just everyone that bangs on your door.
Yeah, anybody who bangs on the door, or undesirables or criminals or whatever. So there's a discernment process, and there's also building the rapport. So building the rapport with your unseen friends helps build the confidence and the trust. So we take time in the classes to really build the trust. And there is a discernment process. You discern the information. Is the information useful? Is it helpful? Is it uplifting? Do you feel better afterward, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, right.
So those are very important factors. Right. And if it's not, then okay, see you later.
Let's try someone next. Who's next?
Yeah.
Thank you. So Is there anything else that you'd like to share about channeling or your experience before we invite Tora to join the
Let's
conversation?
see. Well, I will say that the experience of channeling vocally, direct voice, and full trance is one of being immersed in unconditional love. Unconditional love. So it's also about building this relationship with unconditional love, because as human beings, we like to think we are capable of unconditional love, like a mother or child, but in point of fact, we aren't, because of our bodies. We have adrenaline, and we're geared toward protection and longevity and survival. And so unconditional love is a different matter. So the experience of unconditional love is like this, having a relationship with a being that unconditionally loves you. And that's hard to accept, strangely enough. It doesn't sound like it. But I see people just resisting it, saying, oh, no. And but that's one of the bottom lines.
I can see where people, in working with a lot of clients who don't feel worthy of that love, and so what comes up is often grief or rejection of it, as if I'm not good enough. And so what I encourage folks to think about is, why not me?
Yeah, exactly.
And when you find those deep dark crevices of things that you don't love about yourself, and you love them most, you start to notice that those are really the things that empower you and are your greatest gifts.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah, thank you. Would it be all right to demonstrate, have a demonstration and ask Tora to join us?
There'll be a bit of silence, because
Sure.
it takes me several seconds to go into trance.
Yeah, certainly.
And then Tora will come out to greet you when he's here, and then carry on with the conversation.
Thank
however
you.
you
Thank
like.
you. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
So for those listening, we'll take a moment.
All right. And have a good time with Tora.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Like the whistle here.
I'll do the same.
And so we say greetings and greetings indeed then to you, dear one. A pleasure to be here with you, Travis. Absolutely a pleasure and a joy, and to any of the others who may be tuning in, watching, or listening, or however you're going about it. Yes, maybe you're getting it telepathically, all the better. So greetings to you all. A pleasure to be here. How would you like to begin, dear one?
Well, thank you so much, Tora. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I am thrilled to see you again. We first met very briefly at the workshop that you co-led with Dr. Peebles a few weeks ago, and I was very intrigued and interested, and so excited to have you on. So thank you, first off, so much for.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, I would love to learn a bit more about your purpose with Shawn coming into the world in this way, and a bit about where you came from.
Oh, all right. Well, purpose, of course, is very multi-leveled.
Yeah.
We really now are quite focused on helping other people learn to connect with loving sources of intelligence that can assist them in their lives. So in a sense, that overall feeling of wanting to uplift, help people to become happier and heal here and there, certainly so. But this relationship of human to other is a very important one in the coming human evolution of consciousness. It's really what's upon you here as a humanity. And so this evolution of consciousness, whereby human consciousess in and of itself embraces the concept of other consciousnesses and is able to connect with it telepathically, and from there to build relationship, and from there to understand more about self. Yes, certainly so. Because when you think of the whole self, and that word wholeness is becoming very popular buzzword. There's even stores, Whole Foods, whole this and whole that, all that, all that. It's wonderful. And in that way, toward the greater wholeness of a human being is toward one's awareness of the fullness of their consciousness and the range of its abilities. There are so many things in your teaching intuition and things that's so important, because this expansion of human consciousness is really on the rise, no question about it. And it used to be in times gone by that it was these shamans, the leaders of the tribe, that were the ones who could do such things. Now, of course, it's that everyone's special. Everyone can develop these things. So with that, also we are very much focused on bringing more love onto the world, onto the planet. Certainly so. It's a very big term, and a lot of ways that could be done. Bringing more love in certainly involves to us more relationship with spirit, and the more there is beautiful, clean, loving relationship with spirit, the more love there is in the world. Yes. So these are some of the purposes we focus on.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm curious, because for all the people that might be interested in channeling, it just makes me think, are there just a bunch of unseen friends waiting for the opportunity to join someone in spirit when they become open to it? Is that how you met Shawn?
In a sense, waiting isn't exactly the term, but yes, in a sense. There's a cartoon that was actually in the New Yorker years ago. And there's a little cloud and two entities up on the cloud, and they're looking down from the cloud, and they said, I think I want that one as my channel. Picking someone. So in a sense, it's not far from the truth. However, we would say that many, many times an unseen friend, we call entities unseen friends, because they are unseen and they are friends. Many times unseen friends have a history with the person that they're going to channel through. A history either in a kind of spiritual way, knowing them between lives, or past life experiences together. And in that way, many times in past life experiences, there's a sense of an unconscious agreement that is made between the person and the unseen friend. And then the process of discovering that and uncovering that, letting it evolve and grow, is very beautiful indeed, and very unique. Every story is different.
It's beautiful. And I'm curious, this might sound like a silly question, but age and time and space, obviously in this realm, in the third dimensional space, has some significance, though in other realms, dimensions, much less so. I'm curious, your relative age, is that even just a silly question?
Relative age of what?
Of you.
Oh.
How long have you been in consciousness, if you will, for lack of a better term?
Okay. Well, because we are in a dimension that is outside space and time, it's very difficult to relate to that, because there are no years, there are no minutes, months, etc., etc. How to frame that for you to understand? We've been involved with existence and in existence for longer than you can even imagine, and we have a history that is not limited to the physical realm. So we haven't had a lot of incarnations here on your planet Earth, and just to kind of put the toes in the water and sample it a little bit to understand the human nervous system a little better, the biochemistry of how it works to put consciousness with the body, because we don't have one. So at any rate, it's a little ageless and timeless to say how old are you.
Yeah.
We can't recall ever not existing.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about channeling from your perspective experientially? What does that sort of, what does that
Well,
experience
you know,
mean for you?
it's also a process for unseen friends as it is for humans to adjust, because you're looking at two dimensions trying to fit together. The frequencies and the vibrations are very different. Humans slow and dance, unseen very fast. And so they've got to sort of calibrate and get adjusted. So from spirit side, certainly there's a need for these adjustments as well, and it can be a lot of fun. For example, when we first came through, the voice was like this, the body was down like this. That was what was comfortable for us. But the channel said, oh, not comfortable for me. So can we fix this a little bit? And over time, the adjustments were made. And many, many, many channels that are well known in that regard have had that similar situation where not only is the human adjusting to the idea of, another voice is coming through me, but also the unseen friend, well, how do I get through? How do I use that voice? How do I use, in a sense, that the body, the blending in that regard? And to that, we would also say it all happens in the energy field, not inside the physical body. We like to demystify that myth.
Thank you. I think that a lot of people have a lot of like narrative around occult stories and scary movies and things like possession and or demonic sort of connection, if you will, for lack of a better term. So I was curious about that experience from a space that a lot of people don't have many stories to see or movies about, things like that. And obviously those don't sell as many tickets, I would imagine, but I think that's much more valuable.
Remember that the law of affinity prevails also when it comes to matching humans and spirit, yes? So the law of affinity, so that what is in the consciousness of the human being? What are their shadow aspects? What are the hidden parts of them in that way? And sometimes karmic as well, that could even unconsciously attract an undesirable, unseen consciousness,
Right.
And so in the classes that we teach, we sort of circumvent that. We get ahead of the game and say, okay, let's look at any parts of you, a person, student, who might have a shadow aspect that could have what we would call a hidden agenda to attract an undesirable.
Thank you.
And you know, if you think about human relationships, that's one of the big problems, isn't it?
Right.
Women attracting abusive men, and they say, I didn't know he was. But your subconscious did.
Yeah.
And all of those things. So in that regard, it's completely avoidable to have a difficulty in a relationship with spirit. Law of affinity prevails.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Good to know that, isn't it?
Yes.
It also speaks to the fact that you're always in charge.
Yeah.
You're always in charge. You're always creating your own reality.
Yeah, I think it allows us to feel more empowered with our free will, to be able to set the intention of doing so from a place of love and divine sense of self, desire to fully invest in a relationship that is wholesome and loving and supportive and empowering. So I think that's wonderful. Thank you.
Exactly.
How long does it take for a person to really learn? And I suppose this might be different for different people and their abilities and connections, but how long would it take somebody to be able to do channeling well, a person who's participating?
Well, it depends on how much elbow grease somebody's putting into it, how much effort, and how regularly they channel. We've had students that take a long time to let that voice come through and build that rapport, because they don't practice it. They don't do the developmental stages as much, but those who regularly participate in, I want to build this rapport, I want to build in a sense, the technology of us matching these two different dimensions. And those that really apply themselves can do it quite quickly. We do have a general kind of framework for the idea of channeling, or someone even considering channeling professionally, and that is a 1 year. So this is a belief, and it can completely be countered There's always exceptions to the rule. But if a person has been channeling, vocal channeling, for a year, chances are they know that unseen friend, the unseen friend knows them. There's a sense of integrity and clarity that's been built over time, and trustworthiness, etc. Very important. Just like human relationships, if you think of it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the only time frame we put on it in terms of the idea of going out and really channeling for other people. You want to have that established clarity over a period of a year. And again, there's exceptions.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it absolutely does.
Because it isn't something that just pop.
Yeah.
It happens. You may have that relationship very quickly, but then developing it's going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, thank you.
But not a whole year. That's for professional. So we have classes that are 10-week classes, and it really gets the ball going. And then those who want to really go deeper, usually take an additional 10 weeks course in that way. So roughly that's the time frame.
Thank you. I'd love to ask you, I've asked a lot of questions. I'm also curious if there's anything else that maybe I haven't asked that you think would be valuable for people, knowing that whoever is watching or listening, it is the perfect time for them in that moment, whenever that may be, now or in the future. Is there anything that you would like to share about channeling or yourself or where we are as a community in the world?
Thank you. Well, we'd like to loop back a little bit to what we were saying about building relationship, and how building a loving relationship with unconditional love and an unconditionally loving being can bring countless blessings to one's life. Self-love evolves, happiness, abundance, etc. But there's something else. And that is that when one builds a rapport with an unseen friend that is, well, let us say, tried and true and tested, etc., with integrity and love, then that unseen friend can become a co-creator with their channel. So that the channel wants to create something and says, okay, unseen friend, let's do it together. Now, that would be different than saying, okay, spirit, you do it for me.
Ooh,
that's
right,
not the
right,
idea,
right.
because that takes away from the person's autonomy in creating their own reality and their empowerment. So in this way, that rapport, that closeness, that relationship with an unseen friend allows it to be co-creation, getting a little additional help or enthusiasm or energy or insight. Many times in the classes, somebody will say, I don't know why I'm creating this in my life. And we'll say, well, ask your unseen friend and ask them to help you. And they will, and they do, and then things change. So co-creating is the way of, again, another piece of human evolution, a way of the future, and co-creating with other is something that, well, if you were going to be around for another 200, 300, 400 years, you could see it more overtly, but it's happening now. Yep.
Yeah, yes, thank you very much. Well, thank you so much, Tora, for joining us today. It's a pleasure and an honor to speak with you. Unless there's anything else that you'd like to share.
Well, just to thank you so much for being you. Oh, yes, dear Travis, for being you and being so sincere about your desire and wanting to assist people and pursuing it and continuing to keep doors and windows and highways open, So we thank you, and we also want to thank you very much for bringing these ideas and concepts to people in the tech world, which is absolutely mandatory at this point. So we are very appreciative of that, and we can feel the reach of this little screen, this little microphone. We can feel it, and it's there, and it's very real, and it's very important. So we thank you for your contributions.
You're very, very welcome.
All right, so we'll depart then, and oh yes, it's been delightful. Thank you so much, and we look forward to another time in any way, shape, or form. Much love to you, and we say good day.
You too, thank you.
I'm in a room.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm back.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
still rolling here?
Yeah. Thank
Oh
you
my
so
goodness.
much. Yeah, I thought it would be wonderful to share sort of the whole process
Oh yes.
that we were going through, and now that you're back, it's been I haven't watched the clock. So there's several minutes have gone by, but
Yeah.
before I close out the show, I just wanted to come back to you since we started with you, and just as a follow-up, as you mentioned before, you said that you were kind of sitting back in deep meditation and the trains going by, and I was just curious, were you aware of anything that Tora was saying to me during this interview?
No, not at the time. However, after a session, because Tora is still quite present,
Mm-hmm.
I'm able, if I want to, and if he's agreeable, to sort of download
Mm-hmm.
what happened, but I'm having trouble doing that right
Yeah,
now.
well,
I'm
what's
thinking about
interesting,
that.
I'm thinking about it from the layers of the energy field and the mental plane,
Yeah.
right? The second layer of the field, which contains,
Mhm.
a memory of every experience we have. And I'm very curious about the download, as you mentioned. I mean, your vocal cords were making those words happen in your
Mhm.
physical body. So I think it's just fascinating. But
It is fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinates me. I've been studying it for years, really, and looking at other channels and and talking to them. A lot of my friends are channels. It is a very interesting thing. One thing that I've come to understand, strangely, is that Tora seems to have an entirely different consciousness. If he
Mhm.
was human, it'd be a different brain. It'd be like
Right.
two brains, a different mind. So he has a different mindset than me. So, for example, a client may come that hasn't come in many years to a session, and I'm thinking, oh God, I don't know, what are they asked Tora? I don't remember
Mhm.
anything, and what.
right.
And then the session will start, and Tora's like, oh well, how's your wife? And I mean, it's
Right.
all like
So current
it's all like
events.
he has it all right there. And yeah, pretty much it's really interesting. So that's when I realized, oh, he's got a different memory bank than I do.
Right. And awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's really, really
Yes,
fascinating.
his awareness is far more multi-level than mine.
Yeah. I
So that
understand.
sometimes, when he's talking to a room with a few people in it, he'll be all over the place with them, tuning in on them, even though he's
Yeah.
not addressing it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I want to just thank you again for joining me on the show today, and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your work? Or I know you're here in LA area, as I am now, but I assume that people can go to your website.
My website.
Yes,
Yeah, I was
yes,
gonna say.
perfect.
Because I do workshops, but also I have the regular channeling classes, and so my website is www.shawnrandall.com, ShawnRandall.com, and there's some nice articles in there, and there's a little bit of Tora channeling and things like that, and I do private sessions, of course.
Yeah.
And Skype and over the phone and all. It's nice to Skype somebody in Europe or something.
Yeah, you
like
can
that.
see them.
It's really fun.
I
these
love that
days.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful technology, so helpful.
Yeah.
Well, with that, just want to say thank you again so much for joining me, and that's it for the show. Thank you so much for joining wherever and whenever you're doing so. As you know, there is no accident that you're here, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis.